We are on the record. Today's date's April 11, 2013. The time is approximately 1:34 p.m. This is a videotape deposition, videotape number 1, deposition of Todd Mallow, in the matter of the State of Texas versus Anthony Joseph, cause number 262167C. This deposition is being held at the Landley, Wiley, and Dusky, PC, 500 North 10th Street, P.O. Box 1384, Killeen, Texas 76540. My name is Ian Smith, and I am the legal video specialist for AccuScribe Court Reporters, Inc. The court reporter today is Lauren Morrison. Will counsel please identify themselves and state who they represent?
My name is Steve Dusky. I represent Anthony Joseph.
David Fernandez, I represent Anthony Joseph.
Stephanie Newell, I represent the state of Texas.
We swear in the witness.
Will you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I swear.
You may begin.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Mallow, my name's Steve Dusky. We met earlier, a few weeks ago, I guess. You were here. We started this deposition. At that time, you brought in some information, and I've got a stack of documents, and there's some DVDs that you brought that day. In addition, on that day, you indicated that there were some things that you did not have, but that you had requested. I'd like to follow up with you on that. Have you been able to obtain the other documents or recordings that you had requested, but were unable to bring to our March 21st deposition?
There were some recordings that I did bring down last week, was it?
Right.
You got those? Other than that,
Those were recordings that were to replace ones that you'd already given us because the ones you gave us had the wrong dates on them. Isn't that correct?
correct.
Right. But there were some other recordings of phone calls and things like that involving an incident that you were going to bring as well.
There were. I was not able to locate those.
Okay. You indicated in your testimony on the 21st that you requested them, though, and that you indicated you had to go through a sergeant to request them. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. So
I put in that request to the sergeant, and I still haven't heard anything back from him.
Okay. All right. Can you notify Ms. Newell sometime in the near future if what the status of
Yes,
those are?
I'll follow up on it and see if they have. I don't know what the process is to get that. So, but I'll follow up and see where they're at with it.
Okay. Okay. Well, Mr. Mallow, you're an officer with the Killeen Police Department, is that correct?
Correct.
How long have you been there?
Since about 8.5 years.
Okay. And where do you work at with the Killeen Police
I
Department?
work in the organized crime unit as a narcotics detective. I'm also a task force special agent with DEA.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
With DEA,
Yeah.
about a year and a half.
And how long have you been in organized crime at Killeen Police Department?
Coming up on 2.5 years.
Okay. All right. And because you work in that unit, you handle a lot of search warrants, I assume, right?
Correct.
Okay. And in order to get a search warrant, we know you have to produce something called an affidavit. Is that right?
That's correct.
And that's going to be one of the things that we're going to be primarily focused on today, is talking about your search and arrest warrant that's the underlying issue in this case. You understand that?
I understand.
Okay. And you produced a copy of this. The prosecutors produced a copy of this to us as well. I'd like to go ahead and ask you, is that a copy of your search and arrest warrant? It's dated February 12th, 2013.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I want to go ahead and have that marked as Deposition Exhibit 1. All right, thank you very much. I'll leave that out here in front of you, and I've got a copy for me to use, okay?
Okay.
Before we get into the substance of this, I want to ask you a few questions about search and arrest warrants and affidavits, okay?
Okay.
You can agree with me that a police officer should never mislead or deceive or provide false information to a judge in order to obtain a search warrant, can't you?
Correct.
Okay. And is it your understanding that in obtaining a search warrant from the judge, it really comes down to the judge trusting the information that's contained in the affidavit that's provided? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think you've already indicated you've got significant training in writing and obtaining search warrant affidavits,
Correct.
especially where illegal drugs are involved, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you'd agree that it's accepted police procedure to use a confidential informant to buy drugs.
Correct.
And it's also accepted police procedure to use a field drug test when you make confidential informant buys of suspected drugs, right?
That's correct.
Okay. You'd agree also that the result of that drug test is a very important fact in the case, right?
Correct.
Okay. And if the result of that drug test is positive, then it's accepted police procedure to put that positive result in the search warrant affidavit, right?
Correct.
And if the result of that drug test is negative, it's accepted police procedure to put that negative result in the search warrant affidavit.
Correct.
Okay. And we also, I think, could agree that there's one reason that you put that information in the affidavit, and that's so that you don't mislead or deceive the judge, right?
Correct.
Now, a positive result on a field drug test, that assists you in establishing probable cause in a search, right? In obtaining your warrant, right?
Correct.
And we can agree that the result of a field drug test is a very important fact that a highly trained and competent professional law enforcement officer would include in his search warrant affidavit, right?
Correct.
And we've already established that the negative result you would put in there as well, right?
Correct.
And I think you then agree then that a negative result does not help establish probable cause, right?
Correct.
With that being said, can you think of a reason or an excuse that you would accept from any officer, a highly trained, competent professional law enforcement officer, who chooses not to include the result of a field drug test in a search warrant affidavit?
Okay, I don't understand the question.
Okay, let me rephrase it. Can you think of a reason why an officer would not include the results of a drug test, the subject of the search warrant affidavit?
No.
Okay. From your training and experience, it's important that you document confidential informants and undercover drug buys. Is that right?
Correct.
You attended the police academy, and
Correct.
you've attended other schools, police schools, right?
Correct.
And at the academy and at these schools, they teach you how important it is to include truthful and accurate information in your reports and affidavits, right?
Correct.
They teach you to use the tools and resources that you've got available to you to help ensure that your reports and affidavits are truthful and accurate, don't they?
Correct.
And they teach you that it's good to go over your search warrant requirements with and other legal matters that you have with your prosecutors, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you're taught that conferring with your prosecutor is a good idea, right?
Correct.
You want to ensure that your affidavits used are accurate and provide adequate legal grounds for the judge to sign and authorize the search warrant, right?
Correct.
I'm sure you prefer to meet with the prosecutor before you issue a affidavit for a search warrant to the judge, don't you?
Depends.
Okay. So there's situations you wouldn't want to meet with the prosecutor?
Time frame and availability of the prosecutor, sometimes by phone or whatever, or email, whatever.
Okay, but I'm not asking if you can't always, but I'm just asking, you'd prefer to do it though, wouldn't you? You'd prefer to be able to meet with the prosecutor?
It depends.
Well, then when would you not prefer to?
It depends. I mean, there's no, every situation is different.
Okay. Well, can you give me a situation where you prefer not to talk to a prosecutor about the contents of your search warrant affidavit?
Okay, it's not that I wouldn't prefer to talk to one, but 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, if they're not available,
Sure.
it's not that I wouldn't prefer to. It's just that sometimes situations arise where it's not feasible.
Right, right. And I think we're just talking along two different lines. You'd like a prosecutor to be available at 3 a.m., wouldn't you?
Yes.
To ask those legal questions.
Yes.
But I understand that they're not always going to be available. I agree with you on that. They may not always be. But you'd prefer to be able to, right?
Yes.
Okay. And other training you received at the academy and some of your other schools, you're taught about drafting police reports and affidavits, right?
Correct.
And you're taught that those reports and affidavits are used to secure search warrants and that arrest warrants, and that those documents should be truthful, right?
Correct.
And you're also taught that those reports and search warrant affidavits should include all the important facts, right?
Correct.
And you know that that needs to be in there because you're taught that other officers and investigators, prosecutors and judges, that they all have to rely on your reports and your affidavits, right?
Correct.
And they rely on your reports because when they write their reports and when they investigate, they have to refer to them, don't they?
Correct.
And you have to refer to other officers' reports, don't you?
Yes.
And so you have to rely that the information that's contained in those reports is truthful, right?
Yes.
You'd agree with me then that reports and affidavits that are completed by officers, such as this one, could cause a citizen to be arrested, right?
Yes.
And because of that, then the reports and affidavits, it's imperative that they be truthful, right?
Yes.
It's imperative that they be complete and accurate.
Yes.
And you'd agree that they should not, no affidavit should include any false or misleading information in those affidavits or in the police reports that are referenced, right?
Yes.
And if false or misleading information is contained in those reports or affidavits, you'd agree that that might cause the police to wrongfully arrest someone, isn't it? Isn't that possible?
Possible.
Okay. So, because of those reasons that you've testified to, you write and type your own reports, don't you?
Yes.
And you review the reports that you reference in your reports and affidavits, don't you?
Yes.
And you did that in this case.
Yes.
And you count on the reports that you reference in your report and in your affidavit to be thorough, don't you?
Yes.
You count on those reports that you reference in there and in your affidavit to be accurate. Is that right?
Yes.
If those reports are not thorough, if they're not accurate, you follow up with the investigator or officer that wrote that report, correct?
Yes.
And you document in your report if you found information that was not thorough or accurate, right?
Yes.
And that's what you did in this case, right?
Yes.
Okay. So when you write your reports and affidavit, you also write them close to the time of the incident, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and you'd agree with me that it's important to write those reports when the information is fresh in your memory, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you're not given a time limit to write your reports, are you?
No.
Okay. There's usually not a rush or a...
If somebody's in custody, they usually that day we want to get it done.
Sure. But you're not given a matter of minutes to
No.
issue these, right? So you take time to write a good report, right?
Yes.
You write it thorough and truthful affidavit, right?
Yes.
And you include all the important facts in your search warrant affidavit, right?
Yes.
Because you would include those facts that would be favorable to the citizen, correct? You've identified that you would include information that showed negative results in an affidavit or a report, correct?
Yes.
So you'd include that, correct? That'd be
Yes.
favorable to the citizen. That's fair, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's not only fair to you, it's fair to the citizen, but when we're talking about search and arrest warrant affidavits, it's fair to the judge who reviews that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And is that what you did in this case? You were accurate
Yes.
and fair in what you did?
Yes.
Okay. You were fair to Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
You were fair to the judge?
Yes.
You included all the important facts in this search warrant affidavit we're going to talk about?
Yes.
Now, when you have prepared and have finished your affidavit, you're satisfied that it contains all the important facts that were available to you at that time, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when you present it to the judge, you're confident that it does not contain any false or misleading information, aren't you?
Yes.
And you agree with me that an officer should never present false or misleading information in an affidavit to obtain a search warrant, right?
Yes.
And you've already said that when you get new important facts in a case, you prepare a supplement, right?
Yes.
And you prepare a supplemental report when you find something in a report that's not accurate.
Yes.
And we can agree that the worst time for you to supplement a report is from the witness stand, right?
Yes.
And you've not filed any supplemental reports or affidavits other than what you've already produced to us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you have read all the reports that you reference in your affidavit.
Yes.
And you stand by the accuracy of those reports.
Yes.
You stand by the accuracy of those in preparing your search warrant affidavit.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's move on to your affidavit. The document that's in front of you is marked Deposition Exhibit, excuse me, Exhibit number 1. Is that correct? The document, how many pages is it? It's 10 pages?
10 pages, correct.
Okay. Now, did you prepare this affidavit?
Yes.
Okay. Who else assisted you in preparing it?
Detective John Bowman.
Detective Bowman? Okay. Who else?
That's it.
Where'd you prepare it at?
In our OCU office.
Okay. Now, earlier you testified that you prefer to meet with the prosecutor about search warrant affidavits. You did that in this case, right?
Yeah. I believe I emailed it to her.
Okay. So you sent an email of this to who? Miss Newell?
Let me think. Done so many of these, I don't remember. Let me think. Yes, Miss Newell.
Okay. Did you meet with Miss Newell at the courthouse before the judge signed the
Yes,
search
I
warrant? Okay. And did she have a copy of the affidavit?
Yes.
You believe that she read the affidavit?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure you believe she read it carefully, right?
Yes.
And did you answer any questions that she had regarding the affidavit?
But I don't recall.
Okay. Would it be normal that you would?
If she had questions, yes.
Okay. Is it your understanding Ms. Newell had access to copies of the reports that you reference in your affidavit?
Yes.
Okay. And she approved the information that's in your affidavit, right?
Yes.
Well, what documents and information did you rely on in preparing this?
It's all outlined in the
Okay.
affidavit.
So you relied on all the documents that you reference in your affidavit?
Yes.
Okay. Did you review those with anyone prior to you submitting your affidavit to Judge Gant? Did you review any of those reports that are referenced in the investigation reports? Okay.
Yes.
Did you review those with, I guess, Detective Bowman?
Yes.
Okay. And did you review those with Ms. Newell?
The reports themselves, I don't recall.
Okay. But you know she had them available to her?
Yes.
Okay. And you agree that you understood all the information contained in your affidavit, that you understood all that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you presented it to Judge Gant?
Yes.
Okay. And you know that Judge Gant can issue a warrant based upon the information that's contained in an affidavit, right?
Correct.
And when you present that to the judge, there's no defense attorney present, right?
Correct.
There's no one else present usually but yourself, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And you know that as long as you put enough incriminating information in there, that the judge likely is going to issue it, right?
Rephrase that question.
Well, you know that as long as you put enough incriminating information in there against the party you're wanting to have the search conducted on, that the judge
If
is
you're
likely...
referencing probable cause for a search warrant, yes.
Okay. And if you know that if there's not enough information contained in there, that the judge is not going to issue it, right?
I don't know that.
Okay.
All I know is I present what I have.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, I'm sure you've been told at your schools and at the academy that you've got to present sufficient information, correct?
Probable cause for a search warrant, yes.
Okay. And I'm sure it'd be embarrassing to have a judge refuse to issue a search warrant, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't. Okay.
No.
You wouldn't want that to happen to you, though, would you?
If the evidence wasn't there for a search warrant, then the evidence isn't there.
Okay. Now, looking at the first page of your affidavit, the title says search and arrest warrant. You would agree it's signed by Judge Gant, and it says that the affidavit attached has stated facts and information that were sufficient to establish probable cause for the issuance of this warrant, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you would agree that nowhere on this page does it say that this warrant is based on any misleading information, right?
Correct.
Okay. And I think you'd also agree that primarily right here in this second paragraph that the judge is commanding you to do some things, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So formally, your affidavit actually starts on page 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. And section A, which starts there on page 2 and goes into the middle of page 3, that section just covers things that you think you're going to find in your search, right? Isn't that what it says?
Things that could be found, correct.
Right. Okay. And then if we start on page 3, there's a section B down at the bottom, and that goes into the middle of page 4. That talks about your qualifications as a peace officer, right?
Correct.
Okay. Then in the middle of page 4, we have a section C that starts there, right?
Yes.
And you would agree that in that paragraph marked C, it talks about things that you have observed in other cases or in your training, correct?
Correct.
And it states that the grounds for issuance of this warrant are derived from, and you include review of reports in your paragraph there, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then that goes on, paragraph C goes on until, looks like page 7, right? And that's where section D starts. Is that right?
Yes.
And section D, you start off, it says your affiant states the facts which establish probable cause necessary for the issuance of a search warrant. So that's where you really start talking about information that establish probable cause, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So let's start talking about section D1. All right. Section D1 here on page 7 talks about a undercover investigation, right?
Yes.
Now, in that section, You identify that you reviewed a DPS lab report that identifies .039 grams of AM-2201, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you're familiar with the criminal charge that's been brought against Mr. Joseph regarding this investigation, right?
Yes.
Okay. You're familiar with the offense report and the investigation that's regarding this case, right?
Let me see. Yes, the completing. I just want to make sure I understood what you were asking me. Yes.
Okay. Now you indicate here that an undercover purchase was made and then an additional quantity was obtained from Mr. Joseph after making contact with him. You see that in there?
Yes.
Okay. That's right in the middle of the paragraph there. Recovered an additional quantity from Joseph upon making contact with him. Now, was there a search warrant that was used to obtain that additional quantity from Mr. Joseph?
That wasn't my case.
Okay,
It
but
was Detective Williams.
no, I understand that. But the question is, was there a search warrant that you're aware of to obtain that quantity?
No.
Okay, so you do know that there was not one.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, you're familiar with the reports,
Yes.
right? Okay.
According, yes.
You reviewed the reports in preparation of your affidavit today, or that you're testifying about today.
Yes.
Okay. Wouldn't it be important to identify why there was no necessity of a warrant to obtain or seize that property from this individual?
Detective Williams would have that information, not me.
So you don't know why that is?
No.
Okay. Did you not find that information in your review of your reports?
No.
Okay. So it was absent?
I'm not saying I don't remember seeing anything about that.
Okay.
Why? Why there wasn't a search warrant?
Okay. Don't you think it'd be important for you to put that in your affidavit?
What would be important?
Whether there's a search warrant used to seize property from an individual?
I'm going based off Detective Williams' report
Okay. Okay. So you're going based off Detective Williams' report?
for item number 1, yes.
Okay. Well, so, I mean, is that all you're referring to in that item?
Is
just
there a
her
specific
report?
question here? Because this is really, do you have a specific question?
Are you referring to any other information that you used in formulating paragraph D1?
I still don't understand what you're asking me.
Okay. Well, earlier, you mentioned, and it's in your affidavit, you say that the grounds for issuance of this warrant are derived from these things. So I'm trying to find out what information you used to formulate paragraph D1.
Reports.
Okay. And the only reports? Or was there anything else that you used?
Reports.
Okay. So, but you do know that there was no search warrant used to recover this additional quantity, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, no warrant to recover the quantity in paragraph 1. Paragraph D2 discusses a narcotics investigation that was conducted on August 29th, right?
Yes.
Now, you've already testified that from your training and experience that it's important that confidential informant drug buys be documented, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you'd agree with me that that's what Detective Williams did in this case, right?
Correct.
Her report includes the date, includes the identity of the persons involved, and how the transaction occurred, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So you'd agree that her report regarding August 29th was thorough and complete and accurate, right?
Yes.
And we can also agree that you chose not to include the results of the field drug test regarding the August 29th confidential informant drug buy, right?
Correct.
Okay. How many times in your law enforcement career have you chosen not to include the results of a field drug test in your search warrant affidavit?
I never do.
You never include it.
Never have.
Okay. Didn't you testify earlier that that information would be important to the judge?
It could be, I said it could be important, yes.
Okay. Don't you think it would be important for a judge to establish probable cause if the judge knows that the test is negative?
That would be up to the judge.
If you don't tell the judge, how is the judge supposed to know?
Is there a direct question here, or are you
Yes,
just speculating?
No, if you don't tell the judge in your affidavit that the results of this investigation here are a negative test, how is the judge supposed to know that?
I don't know that.
Don't you think it's important to tell the judge that?
It could be.
Well, when would it not be important?
Do you have a direct question here, or
You can answer that question. When would it not be important?
when would it not be important?
Yeah.
It would be important.
Okay, so it's always going to be important to
Yes.
include that. So then why don't you include it?
I can't answer that question.
Okay. But you know what the result was, right?
I do now. I've been made aware of it.
You didn't know then?
Yes.
Okay, well you just said I know now. What's the significance of now?
I don't know.
Okay, well when did you know?
When I wrote the search warrant, I reviewed the report and wrote it based off what I read.
Okay. So did you know then that the results of that investigation were that that purchase that day was tested negative?
That I was not aware. I must have misread it. I don't know. But no, I was not aware that it was negative at that time.
But you agree with me today that it is. It was negative, right? The report indicates it was.
Since I've been made aware of that, yes.
You agree?
Since then,
Right.
yes.
So we've got a negative test. We're talking about the August 29th report, right? You said you referred to all the reports that form the basis of your affidavit, right?
Correct.
Does that refresh your memory as to the August 29th report?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the August 29th report?
Yes.
What does it say? The results of the
It
field
says
test?
negative reading.
So earlier when you said you reviewed reports prior to completing your affidavit, did you not read that or did you mistake that?
I read the report, but I didn't realize that it said negative at that time.
Okay. You earlier testified that Miss Newell had access to the reports. Did she identify to you, or was there any discussion between the two of you about that being a negative report?
No.
When you wrote in your affidavit, let's refer back to your affidavit, it says a positive ID was not made. What are you trying to say there? At the end of paragraph D2.
Positive ID on the suspect that sold the substance was not made.
Okay. When you wrote the purchase was successful and the CI reported that a black male sold the substance to the CI, what did you mean by that?
That the CI was able to purchase synthetic cannabinoids from the person that was not able to be identified at that time.
Okay. But you you agree with me, though, that the report says that that purchase was a negative, the test result was a negative?
Yes, since I've since been made aware of that, yes.
Okay.
And that was a mistake by Detective Williams.
What was a mistake by Detective Williams?
The typo in the report.
So the August 29th report should say it was a positive
Yes,
drug test?
correct.
So you're saying even though the report says negative, it should say positive on the August 29th report?
Well, it's not my report, but that's the information that I've received since
Okay.
then.
And you've already said that you would have reviewed that. Right. You've already said that you would have reviewed the report.
I did review it, yes.
Okay. So you would have noted then that it said negative. Did you talk to Detective Williams about that?
At that time, no,
Why
because
not?
I didn't see it.
Okay. So you just assumed it said positive?
No, I didn't. That's not what I'm saying. I didn't assume anything.
Well, I'm just trying to understand how, if you thoroughly read that report and it says it's a negative result, how you understood that to mean positive. That's all I'm trying to understand.
I didn't put in my report that it was positive.
Well, then what
It
should
says-
you have put in here then?
I put in there that confidential informant was utilized to purchase suspected synthetic cannabinoids. I never put in there that it tested negative. I never put it in there that it tested positive.
Okay, so you're just trying to tell the judge, well, the CI purchased something, but we don't know what it was.
That's not what I'm saying either.
Okay, well, what are you trying to say then?
It's right there.
Okay. Do you not care whether it says positive or negative results?
Of course I care.
Okay. Do you not care if the judge knows if it's positive or negative results?
In this situation, this is a combination of everything, probable cause for this search warrant.
No, I understand that, but I'm still talking about this one paragraph. Do you not care if the judge knows that that result was a negative result?
Yes, I care. And it would have been in there if I'd have seen it.
Okay. So you didn't see it?
Correct.
Okay. Who else did you confer with regarding the August 29th investigation? Just Detective Bowman?
Detective Bowman.
Okay. Did you and Detective Bowman talk about what the results were of that test?
Not at that time.
Okay. Well, you said since this time you've come to understand that there was a mistake in the report. Is that correct? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
That is what has came to light, correct?
Okay. When did you find that out?
That was, we had arrived in court. I forget what day it was.
Was that the day we subpoenaed y'all over there? Was that day?
Yeah, it was like the day before that, whatever
Okay.
that day was, yes.
That was just a couple weeks ago.
Correct.
You'd agree, right?
Right.
So you just found out sometime around the first part of April that the report, this one here that you've just referred to, that you're saying that you found out that that is incorrect. That the test result should say positive, should not
Correct.
say negative. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Who made that information available to you, or who told you that?
I believe it was Miss Newell, I believe.
Did Detective Williams tell you that?
I don't recall, no.
Okay. Did you ever talk to Detective Williams about that?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna take a break for a moment.
We're off the record approximately 2:14 p.m. You didn't take one.